folks, my wife, Angela, and I, we've known Alberto through the Italian Club. It's a little group, and we get together on the second Saturday of the month, usually at Panera's, and talk and have fun, drink a lot of coffee, give the people there a lot of trouble. But anyway, they know we're coming, and they even will help us arrange the tables around. So we're kind of a little standard group. They kind of look for us on the second Saturday of the month. We've shared some fun times together through the few years that we've known one another. And so I do want to express my sympathy to Alberto's family, and particularly to you, Suzanne, and you have our sympathy and prayers. We're here to celebrate his life and to share a few of the memories and a few of the good things that he told us and some of the memories that he left us. We want to thank God for Alberto's life. I think that's very important that we do that. We need to thank God for the time that we had with Alberto. He left us some wonderful memories. I especially will remember him for a couple of things. One, we know he was a movie buff. And it just, it fascinates me still when I think so many of the movies, well, he was much more knowledgeable than I am, but still, a lot of the movies we had seen in common, and we were able to talk about and share so many of the memories we had about movies. If there was something I didn't know, I could ask him. He could always fill us in. Well, my wife is also a movie buff, so usually they did all the talking. And once in a while, I could get in a word. I know he was knowledgeable about movies. He loved to travel. That's something he also shared with us, and shared his experiences, which was wonderful hearing him talk about that. I will also remember him, most importantly, the most important, essential thing that I remember about Alberto was the way he chose to live his life, with meaning and being truthful to himself and to those around him. He tried to live his life in a way which to me is reflected in a poem which a friend of mine gave me by the Brazilian poet Mariano de Andrade. And the final verse of Andrade's poem goes like this, and I quote. He said, "My goal is to arrive at the end of my journey, both satisfied and at peace with my loved ones and my conscience. And my wish is the same for you on your journey's end." I certainly believe that Alberto had a satisfying journey, and he did arrive peacefully in the end where his journey took him. I know too that goodness and mercy have followed him, and that he rests in the house of the Lord forever. Rest in peace, Alberto. We will miss you, but only for a time.
Chuck Stewart, friend and our piano player at Suzanne and Alberto's wedding, is going to come forward and just share a few thoughts.
My wife and I had the privilege of being friends of Suzanne Thompson long before Alberto came into her life and into our lives as well. Suzanne, as many of you know who know her well, has a way of getting you to do things that you really get in the middle of them and can't believe you're doing. Suzanne called me about another matter one day, and then she began to tell me about this gentleman that had come into her life. And she described the perfect man. The man that I would have loved to have been, and that any guy would love to have heard a lady saying all these wonderful things about him. And so therefore, I became suspicious immediately. And I thought, oh, bless her heart, this is too good to be true. She's going to be in for a terrible disappointment. And later on, she called me and said that she would like us to meet Alberto, and we did, and found him to be just as charming as he was in real life, and just as easy to be around as he was in real life. And because of my hearing problem and his heavy accent when speaking the English language, I think we both probably did a lot of smiling and nodding. Sure. Suzanne called me and said, "We are getting married, and I want you to provide the wedding music." And I said, "Really? Where is this wedding?" And she said, "It's at the Molly Fontaine Cocktail Lounge." And I thought, well, I've never played for a wedding in a bar. And I knew that there was no way I was going to say no, because no is not a good answer for Suzanne. At that wedding, I barely knew Alberto. I watched him, I could see him right over the music stand on the piano, and I watched him, and all evening he had this fixed, pleasant, genteel smile on his face, and whatever was going on, he went along with it. And I remember saying to my friend Thomas over here, when it was all over, I'm not sure he knows that we just married him to her. Later, we became great friends. He was one of the most pleasant people to be around I've ever known in my entire life. And the two couples, my wife and I, and Suzanne and Alberto, had many dinner dates. Suzanne called me one day about a month ago. She said, "We haven't been out to dinner in a while. Don't you think it's time we should go out to dinner?" And I said, "Sure, where do you want to go?" And we discussed it, and we picked a place that we had all four been to together before, and where we had a private room in the restaurant. And we agreed to go back there. And she said, "Well, you make the reservation." So I called and I asked for the private room, and I told them when we wanted to come, and they said, "Sure, the room is available that night." And just as I was getting ready to hang up, the lady said, "Is this for anything special?" And I told a big lie. And I will never know what came over me at that moment. But I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, what?" And I said, "An anniversary." And she said, "Whose? You and your wife's?" And I said, "No, the other couple." She said, "What are their names?" And I told her. We got to the restaurant, and By the way, Suzanne had given me a hard time about being such a liar. I told her what I had done. We got to the restaurant, we went in the private room, they opened up their menu and it said, "Happy Anniversary." And with their name spelled correctly, too. So, I like to think that maybe I had a hand in giving them that 4th wedding anniversary. And I will always be grateful for that night. And I will always cherish my memories of Alberto.
From the wedding. So the smile he's talking about, right there. I love show and tell. Alberto always said he had 2 sons in Argentina and 1 daughter in America. You heard from Alejandro earlier, and here's what Andres wrote. Today we have to say goodbye suddenly. It's sad, of course, but true to your style, we will remember you with a big smile. We are thousands of kilometers away, but our hearts are there. We want to say that we love you very much. We learned a lot from you. Above all, to be free, always look for happiness, and always do what your heart says. We are proud of you. You are a great father and a great grandfather. See you soon. Rest in peace. Thanks for everything. In closing, we will now hear from his American daughter, Sarah.
Alberto was the only dad that I've ever known. He was compassionate, open-minded, a lover of art and music, and he also loved to travel. He taught me so much. Among some of the things he taught me was how to cook. He loved food, and he was an amazing teacher. He believed in me before I believed in myself. That's just the way he was. He loved my mom with all his heart, and they were so happy together. One night, he was teaching me how to make Alfredo. And we were in there cooking, and my mom walked through, and he grabbed my mom by her hand and kissed her on her cheek, and they started to dance together. It's one of the fondest family memories that I have. He was so kind and intelligent. He always knew what to say to make everything okay. And he always knew how to make anyone smile. He taught me his 2 favorite words in English were elegant and harmony. He taught me how to be elegant, and he showed me how to live in harmony. My mom loved her with everything she has and misses him every day and all the time. What we wouldn't give for one more lesson and one more dance. Goodbye, I love you and I'll miss you.